Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World, and in this video I'm going to do the character review for Spear Bearer Anaak. As the last one, I'm going to talk about how good this unit is, then we're going to look at the skills, revolution, exclusive equipment, gear, ignition weapon, rapport, and finally some team recommendations. For the team recommendations section, I won't really go over best teams because she's kind of a support unit, so you don't really build a team around her, you just slot her in when she could be useful. So I'll do my best to provide some use cases for when to use this unit and also some example teams. But again, they're not going to be our best in slots in any way. So yeah, that's the idea. I would say we can get started with the first point. So how good is Anaak? I will say she's a really solid unit. She's, I would say, really important, one of the most important units in the red element. The thing is, she's a bit less relevant than the other data tower unit that we got, Ice Spear Kunagero. I'm comparing them because they have basically the same kit, but with some differences. I will say Anaak is definitely a lot squishier. She will die in a lot of scenarios unless you are careful. That's not that big of a problem if you are, like, let's say below floor 90 or so. You won't have to deal with as many annoying units as other people, but in later stages there are really a lot of units that can kill her. Steel is not too big of a deal depending on how you build your team, but you have to keep in mind that her survivability is going to be a bit of a pain. Except for that, her kit is absolutely amazing. She has defense shred, HP recovery block, which is massive, energy decrease, which is not as good as Kunagero's, but okay. She has swiftness decrease as well, really important. So there's a lot of stuff going on for her, and it's all really important. So we cannot really say this unit is bad. Actually, quite the contrary, she is a really important unit. So yeah, other things worth mentioning before going over the skills is that this unit doesn't need Rainbow 5, but she gets, I would say, an additional playstyle and also like some more relevance, because with Rainbow 4 she gets 500 starting energy plus the 500 from Rainbow 5. That's an instant special move as the first skill that you can pair with a specific ignition weapon set we're going to look at later. So that's kind of the idea for this unit. So definitely you can use her before, especially again if you are below floor 90, but above that I'd say Rainbow 5 is almost mandatory. Otherwise you won't really gain a lot of value from her. And yeah, that's more or less the idea, guys. I'd say we can get started looking at the skills. I will try my best again to be as quick and brief as possible. Fortunately, our kit is not that complex. So for the passive, super straightforward. Her basic attacks are always going to target the enemy that's furthest away, and she always pierces all enemies in its path, which is really good. Also, there is a swiftness decrease effect up to a maximum of 80 if you have level 5 skill, otherwise it's 40. And her basic attacks can never miss, which is insane. Then, as I mentioned before, Rainbow 4 is going to give her 500 starting energy, really solid. Then we have the first active skill. This is basically worthless, it's just a barrier that gives her additional physical and magic resistance and additional swiftness. The additional swiftness is nice, the additional resistance is not too important if you're playing at high deficits. She's still dying anyway, she's made of paper, so it doesn't really matter, but it's okay. Overall is not too bad, but don't expect too much from it. Then we have Raid. This is one of her most important skills. She again targets the enemy that's furthest away, hitting 3 times, which is important for the exclusive equipment effect, locking them for 3 seconds, one of the few CCs she has, and reducing defense by 60% for 10 seconds. This is a really good debuff. Any defense decrease effect is really important the higher your deficit. So nothing to say here, really good skill. Then we have the last one. She becomes immune to status effects and releases a blast of hit on the furthest enemy. Again, all of her skills basically target always the enemy that's further away. So that's important when you think about where you place her. You want to place her in a way that she targets an annoying unit. You want to delay the special move off, or you want to get rid as quickly as possible. So really important. And what this does is just a bit of damage, we don't care about that, and block enemy HP recovery for 10 seconds. really good debuff. Now, this is not that great in and of itself, because if you cannot reapply it, there are a lot of enemies that have like debuff removals. So against those, this is going to be shit, unless you have Revolution 5, which just turns it into an unremovable buff, or debuff, sorry, which is insane. I don't know why they wrote buff removals. They should have wrote debuff removals, but whatever. This is just one of the many typos we have in the game, so that's okay. So again, really, really great value in our kit. It's pretty basic. As we saw, there is really nothing too complex, just defense shred. We have HP recovery block. We have swiftness decrease, really good stuff, and barrier and whatever. Nothing major, just some easy stuff. I'd say we can have a quick look at Revolution first, but again, she's a necessary unit, so I wouldn't really bother with the subnodes. I added attack speed. This is pretty important to quickly stack up the swiftness, but that's about it, I would say, guys. There is really nothing else you should unlock. To be completely honest, cooldown reduction could be somewhat okay. Now we're talking about an 8%, which is not worth it from my point of view. So I didn't unlock it, but that could potentially be something. Effect hit could come in handy. You don't necessarily need it for adventure. It will be more useful for PvP. But I would say if you can dump a few points, if you don't have enough effect hit to be above the enemies in adventure, which you should have with Origin Orb already, but in case you don't, just dump a few points in there. Other than these 2 points, nothing else really matters, so you can skip everything. Now for the exclusive equipment, which is pretty important because it adds quite a few things. Well, level 1 is worthless. We don't give a shit about extra damage, and the same applies for level 4. We don't give a shit. Level 2 is, again, pretty worthless. She just gains HP back when she uses the barrier skill. We don't care. The only important one is level 3, and that is Raid, which is the spear attack that hits 3 times. Reduces the energy of enemies hit by 200 with each hit. This is 600 energy decrease. This is not much, I'd say. I mean, it's good, but it's not frequent enough. A unit like Ice Spear Kunagero has a 200 energy decrease per second on an AoE. This is only single target, and you have the CD of the active skill. So, kinda meh. Still, it's nice. It will just reduce the energy of the key target you're focusing on, so it's still extremely valuable. It's just that when you compare it to someone like Icepear Conagero, definitely it falls short, but still amazing. So yeah, this is the most important and the only effect you really care about on our exclusive equipment. The extra physical resistance is also nice, but you will build mostly resistances anyway, so you don't really care. And yeah, that's more or less it for the exclusive equipment as well. For the gear, nothing much here, just go resistances, and the rest is unnecessary. Slot 1 and slot 3, as usual, could be upgraded if you need the extra accuracy. In the case of a ranged unit like Anaak, only slot 1 will give you accuracy, the other one has full evasion. So kind of up to you, but it might not matter. And yeah, that being said, next we have the ignition weapon. Now you could build her a few different ways. Here I placed as the default set that you can use at the beginning as a shared set, Rafflesia. It's a good one. Definitely you can get some additional energy every now and then if you block CCs. And if your Anaak is not too squishy yet, because maybe your deficit is a bit on the lower side, that's even better. Rafflesia will work perfectly fine. But in the later stages, when she just dies in a couple of hits, Rafflesia won't really change much. So you could go for some other sets that will give you additional survivability. Maybe the new Bari could be interesting if there is some sort of invisibility mechanic when the unit goes below a certain threshold. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, for now I'd say Rafflesia is a good starting kit. If you ever a Rainbow 5 Revolution 4, definitely going with the Rihanna set is going to be extremely important. I mean, it's not mandatory. You can definitely get away with running Rafflesia or whatever you want, Sela, doesn't matter. As long as you give her survivability, it's totally fine. So the Rihanna set is obviously important because she's going to cast the special move as the first skill with the 500 energy from Rainbow 5 and the 500 energy from Revolution 4. She's going to immediately cast the special move and apply silence on a straight line on all enemies hit, usually 2 I'd say, but you are silencing the key unit you are targeting. And you are applying the unremovable HP recovery block, which gives you higher chances if you have other units that can hit them to actually kill them, which is, again, pretty solid. So yeah, not much we can say here. This is definitely a really good set, but again, as I mentioned, you can potentially run whatever you want. It doesn't really change that much. You could even go with a set to increase your like attack speed so that you can apply the swiftness stacks a bit more quickly, but in the end, it doesn't really matter that much. So yeah, that's the idea for the ignition weapons as well. For Rapport is as usual, I'd say swiftness is mandatory and accuracy. If you are in a sort of accuracy deficit, definitely go for that. There are not that many units that use the jet necklace. It's mostly Ren and all the versions of Anaak. So yeah, not really a lot of competition. You can definitely spare some gifts for her. And yeah, the last point I'd say, I think I already covered all of the other stuff. The last point is related to like sort of team recommendations. So let me go here in the arena simulation again. And let's select our Anaak. So Anaak, again, as I mentioned, doesn't really have a team where she shines. Definitely one of the best units to pair with her if we have to think of sort of a best team, even though again doesn't really apply to supports most of the times, would be an Alice team. The reason being both of them target the furthest away enemy, and if you position them on the same side, they will likely target the same unit. So for example, here we put, I don't know, let's take a random unit, whatever, Evankel. They will both likely target the unit that's here, unless there are units that replace the enemy position or position them in some other ways. Like maybe here we have a close range unit that's going to move up, then the enemy that's furthest away is going to be the one in this position. But again, it doesn't really matter that much. They will likely always target the same unit if they're positioned like this. Obviously, if you position Alice on this side, then most of the times they will target the like a different enemy. But yeah, if you pair them together, you're going to slow down the enemy where Evankel is. You're going to, again, decrease their swiftness, block their HP recovery, and just straight up start destroying them with Alice. They're pretty good, again, only for these targeting that they have. Other than her, you can really use whoever you want. She really fits in whichever team you need to block the enemy HP recovery. So if you have enemies like, I don't know, let's take for example an Evan, it's good if you position her like this. This guy is going to have HP recovery block, which is not the main part that you care about. You're going to decrease his swiftness, which is really important to delay special move. And you will also cast the raid skill to also remove his energy. So overall, this is a good way to counter Evan. Not the only one, but it's a good one. You could also go against Warwick. Again, every single healer you can kind of counter a little bit. You can go against annoying targets that have high like priority in terms of getting rid of them to decrease again their swiftness so that they delay their special moves. And Garam's special move is extremely annoying, so that's a good thing to do. And yeah, this is just the kind of use case you want to use. Again, delaying enemy special moves, just reducing the healing if we have healers in the enemy team. And if we have also units like Urek, definitely is also a good option. She's going to block his HP recovery, so even if you have units that apply crowd controls to him, he's not going to be healed back, which is really, really important. Other units that are extremely tanky, like for example, Data Hats, is also a good way to counter him. But this is only going to work when he is the only one left. Same thing with Urek, because again, as we saw, she targets the enemy that's furthest away. These guys are close range, so they will be on your team side. So it's highly unlikely you're going to target them. First, you have to get rid of the other units, and then when they're the last one left, if your Anaak is still alive, then she will help counter them. Don't just take for granted that she's going to counter those units. That's not gonna happen. You have to build a team in a way that it sets it up for her. Obviously, if the enemy you have to get rid of is a ranged one, then definitely it's easier to target. But again, if it's a close range one, then you will have to wait a bit. That will be the last one targeted. Unless you can also predict when they're like where they're going to move, and you position her like, let's say I know that Urek is going to come like in this position. I place Anaak here so that while she targets the enemy that's in the back, she will also hit Urek. That's an option, but Urek is extremely mobile, so you're not really going to hit him reliably. And yeah, that's kind of the problem. Also, I mentioned tank hats, but unfortunately, that guy has an AoE attack of like for his special move that's extremely annoying and deals a shit ton of damage. And your Anaak will likely be hit by that and just die. That's just unfortunate, but in the right scenarios with the right teammates, like if you can boost your Anaak's durability, because maybe you're running Anniversary or Revolution 5 in that team, that will also kind of work out some way or another. So yeah, that's more or less the idea. Obviously, you can counter a Ghost, you can counter a Varagarv, not a big deal. There are a lot of units that you can easily counter with Anaak. So yeah, these are more or less the use cases and a little bit of information on this unit. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, let me know. Definitely, if you didn't pull for her yet, I'd recommend you to do so, because next patch the data tower is going to go away. And yeah, definitely a really important unit to have. Now, if you're only pulling for her for the energy block capabilities, like the energy decrease she has in the exclusive equipment, and maybe the early silence, I'd say you can at that point think of skipping her, because we're going to get the like the new unit Cassano, which is again a red unit, and has specifically a kit that will try to block the HP recovery of the selected target. So chances are it will be a bit better for that task specifically, but if you need a unit that can block HP recovery and reduce defenses, definitely Anaak is a really solid pick. Not restricted to red alone, you can slot her in wherever you want. So yeah, that's more or less it, guys, and I will see you in the following days with another character review for Gustin. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you then. Bye!